after I got there, I fell in love with it. I went to school to become a forest ranger, what I am now, but when I got to the nursery, it was like, man, this is home, and there's still great people that work there. I mean, fell in love with the work and the people. So still a good group of people down there. I still visit them all the time, and so it's hard for the salesman to stay inside of me. Like I still, every time I have a crowd, I'm always like trying to sell the nursery trees. And because I mean, I've planted plenty of them on my farm, different varieties of trees, and yeah, I mean, it's hard to find seedlings, as cheap as that anywhere else. Ornamental nurseries obviously have pretty potted trees that you can grab. Usually comes at a higher cost. Anytime you buy a larger tree, though, you have to have a way to irrigate it. The smaller tree, what they offer is a 1-year-old seedling. They grow it out for 1 year, and that may be containerized or bare root. Every year they containerize. They're trying to expand their market into containerized seedlings. Used to it was loblolly or longleaf, and now they keep on adding species to the mix. Some of it is trial and error. They don't want to trial on a big volumes. They try a small amount, and then if it works, then they'll keep on moving forward with that. But they offer there's basically it's divided up in hardwoods and conifers, and they have, when you buy by the conifer, there's more in the bundle. In the hardwoods, you can buy as low as a 10-pack, and that's kind of to me, that focuses more on us, like the folks that want to plant a few cherries over here, or a few, it helps the small landowner. Most people think that, hey, it's just for the tree planter, and where it is, like, the big tree planters are out there planting thousands and millions of trees. It's for them, but it's also for everyday folks going out, that has a home, 1 acre, half acre, 100 acres. I mean, you can mix it up and get the different quantities that you would like. If anybody would want one, there's plenty of them up here. I can pass them out however you want to do them. But we do have, me and Joey had to print some off. They usually get their seedling catalogs in June, and I called up Bobby, which is the supervisor. He's the program head down there, and said, Bobby, I said, I need some magazines for the beekeepers. And he said, I don't have any. He's like, he said, I have them on order, but like everything else, it's slow and comes a day late. So he sent me the digital form. I printed off the digital form, and this is a catalog for this year. Every year it changes. So like this year, I noticed that some of the hardwood species, the pollinators, were in there last year, and it's basically how that worked. So we have 100, out of all the counties, we have a presence in every county, the Forest Service does, and the rangers are responsible for collecting the seeds. Well, every year does not bear the same, with different species of trees. So, and then we don't have our staffing is horrible right now. I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you. We're probably, I'm not sure the percentage, but it wouldn't surprise me if we're probably like 60% filled, which causes us to have to travel more with fires and such. But with that being said, the amount of seed that we normally get didn't come in. Well, I say we, I'm still a part of the nursery. I can't help it. But so we used to, whatever seed we got in, that's what if we got abundant of, let's just say crab apple, I'm gonna plant, I'm preparing that seed for the nursery so they can plant that crab apple. If we don't get it, then if we don't collect, nobody collects it in the counties, then I just don't plant it here. Except for the few species that are on high demand and very viable, very important for us making sure we have the right numbers in the state. So we have inventory foresters that go out in the state, and they take inventories of your hardwoods and your pines. And I get, once they have a concern there, they're gonna they're gonna push to plant that species. One of the, so with that being said, some of the seed sources are bought, but it's very few, very few. Like, and then if there's an orchard that's available, they will pick from the state-owned orchard. All of your improved varieties, or all of your, and the fancy lingo in here, you know, like your third gen or your fourth cycle or third cycle, that's just the next generation of breeding, and that is all, you know, collected in-house, or, you know, from state grounds that has, and that's what I used to do is the breeding work, and the seed cleaning. But as far as that goes, don't get too confused on that. It's, I mean, if you want to, if you're growing for timber, I mean, that's you might want to look into that a little bit more, but as far as the bees, you know, you're gonna probably be focused on the hardwoods, so, but just throwing that out there. In their catalog, I thought this was neat, because they did not do this when I was, employed there, but they, cause I've been in the county now, I apologize, should have given a little bit more of a background. So after 9 years, I came to the county, and it was mostly because of health. My lungs couldn't take the seed dust anymore, and the doctor was kind of like, hey, you have no choice. It's either die early or find another job. So I chose one with smoke. I don't know if that was a smart idea. So, matter of fact, this morning, breathed in plenty. And so I've been there, so 19 years total. Joey started out with DOT, and about 10 years, Joey?
10 years.
And then he moved on to the nursery, and he stayed, what, a year or two?
Yeah, about a year.
So, and then somehow I convinced him to come work with me. So
Wasn't hard.
Wasn't hard.
No.
So Joey's our operator. So in our county, we have 3 rangers. We have myself, we have Jalen Ward, which he is right out of Elm City, which is a little far. Used to the old rule said you had to live in the county. But can't find much help, and Jalen is a great guy, and I wanted him, and they didn't, so we're, you know, lenient on the mileage. I was like, please, you know, come work with us, and it worked out. So Jalen, he's from Elm City area, and then there's also Justin McLemore. He was Marine, and when he settled down here in Goldsboro, which now is Princeton area, is where he lives, right across from the school. He lives, I don't know if you've seen the Marine flag waving right there in front. You know where the big sign is? Just carrying it, the big Princeton sign for the field. Anyway, he lives basically right across from that. But anyway, he resides there, and then he's one of our rangers as well. They're both of my assistant county rangers, and Joey's our operator. And Joey, he's hopefully he stays around as long as I do. Because me and him, we've got a few more years to go before we retire. So, all of them, I have a great team, and they're always willing to come help out. I know Mr. Buddy, you know, he'll send me a random picture, say, hey, what is this, you know? If y'all have questions about trees, or, you know, like, it don't matter if it's something simple as a disease, or it's just an issue of, you see like some bugs that don't need to be there on a tree, just give us a call. We're there. We don't mind coming looking at it. And if I can't figure it out, I will definitely. Wayne Langston, he's our bug guy right here in the county, and it's kind of nice. He serves about pretty much the eastern part of North Carolina, but he has an office at Claire's Nursery, so it's pretty nice having him right there. So I'm always like, hey man, come on ride with me. So I use him for his brains, but he's a good guy. He lives right down the road from me as well, and I live out of Bentonville, so right there at the county line. But anyway, back to what I was saying. So what they've done with the catalog is pretty neat. Is they've put little bees beside all your pollinator trees. So that's been pretty neat. I was like, man, you're taking all the work out of, you know, my presentation away from me. Made it easy on me. So it looks like this year, and we can, looks like this year, they've got a few more. I've got a list of them up there, so I don't have to flip through this thing. But the ways that you can order is, there's a few different ways. One is you can go to online, and it's ncforestservice.gov, and you can click on the tree seedling link, or on the back of this, there's a QR code. or you can call the phone number, which is, I always remember the regular number, but I think they want you to call 1-888-NC-TREES. And that, you get in touch with one of the ladies there, and you can just order them that way. I will say one of the confusing things is compared to a traditional nursery is like an ornamental nursery is, so when you order, sales did not start until July 1st. So right now, if you go online, it's gonna look like everything's out of stock. And they go out of stock quick. So the best thing to do is if you want to order the seedlings is July 1st, go ahead, get online or make the phone call, go ahead and get your trees reserved. So when you buy the trees, you're not buying them right then and take them home. You have to wait till lifting season, which is in the winter. And the point of that is they want the seedlings to be dormant, so when you plant them, they can take a little bit more stress, than they can in the summer. And this is mostly based around the science of, tree planters that are planting cutovers. In a cutover, nobody's going to order the trees. They have to survive on their own. So, but most of the time, they are like 12 to 18 inches tall. They're not very big. But the containers, they're like usually 4.5. I'm not sure. They changed the hardwood containers, so I'm not sure the size of them, but it's still a pretty small seedling. And I can't remember the exact prices for this year. I haven't looked at the price list.
Price list on that one because that was the digital copy.
Okay.
I don't think they put a price list on there.
Okay, if you pick up the catalogs from the nursery or go online, it will have the pricing. And I think it was somewhere $20 to $30 for a 10-pack, so it's fairly cheap considering, ornamental, going to an ornamental nursery.
Also, most of y'all are local, so they're more than happy to talk to you at the nursery and they'll take your order right there.
Yep.
So that's something else that, yeah.
Yep, going in person always helps. Go in there and talk to Michelle. She's the one that looks like, got me on recording. She looks like Statue of Liberty. She's got her hair like this, so you'll know who she is. Very nice lady. She's been there.
Got a personality.
Yeah, she's got a good personality. I think, so if I've been there 19, she's probably been there 22, 23. She knows, she knows how to sell a seedling, so, good person to come in contact with. Anything else about catalog I'm missing, Joy? I think that's about it.
So when you order a smaller bundle, 10-pack, 50-pack, whatever, depending on, they're gonna send them to you in, what's that stuff called where it has that little bit of root stuff?
Yeah, it's something to keep the roots moist.
Yeah, and also help them where they'll start growing a little faster when the growing season starts back up in the springtime.
They inoculate mycorrhizae into the roots to help them, survive. So Mr. Tim might can explain that better than I could. So this presentation, Preston, I was really wanting him to come. And like everybody else, we got sent off in so many directions, different places, but Preston, this is what he does. This is his hobby. And I was like, Preston, can you please come and talk? Because everybody's got their own little specialty, their own little niches. And I know a little bit about bees. My first experience was my father-in-law, when I got married to my wife or whatever, she said, you need to check out the bees. I said, so we went out there to the farm, and he had some old hives, set up and looked like he hadn't messed with them in a while. And he told me he hadn't. And anyway, I noticed that some were like in the stacks that were for storage, some of all the boxes, and I'm like, good gracious, I said, how much honey are in them? Because the bees are in them, and they look like they're doing fairly well. But I talked to my father-in-law, and I was telling Mr. Tim earlier, I was like, I want to know more about this bee thing, and he hands me a whole, big old box full of cassette tapes. and I have to be honest, if I put me to sleep. And it was a very old school type video, and then I was like, and it had great information, but it was hard for me to pay attention through all of it. My little, my brain was, all over the place, and I said, man, I was like, can't you just give me the Cliff Notes version of Mr. Leonard? So Mr. Leonard, he did tell me a lot. I still haven't got into it yet, so I told him it's his fault. So one day I noticed that there was a hive attached to a walnut tree. And I was like, hey, I said, Mr. Leonard, I said, they've done swarmed on us. And he said, it's too late in the year. He said, this is a little weird. He said, but I'll still go out there. He said, probably won't survive, but I'll go out there and show you how to collect it. Well, me and my wife and Mr. Leonard went out there, and he said, put the box, he said, put the box right up under the hive. And he said, it's a little higher than what I'm used to. He said, I'm gonna hit it with a 2x4. And he said, they'll fall in. He said, the queen will fall in the box. You'll be good. He said, I've done it quite a few times. And he said, he said, we'll be fine. He said, I was like, they're gonna sting us. And he said, no, they won't. He said, no, we don't have to wear a suit. He said, they're fat and happy, and they're not in the business of stinging. I said, okay. I said, I trust you. Well, worst mistake ever. So he takes, just like, he hit the branch with a 2x4, and it looked like an alien movie. When the bees started falling, they stopped about face level, and they all started peeling out. And when they started peeling out, next thing you know, I could squint out of one eye, and I saw Mr. Leonard just doing this, and that's what I was doing as well. I was just raking them off my face. My wife's screaming, she's running towards the house. I'm telling her to get on out. Me and Mr. Leonard, we've been stung. I mean, in the business of forestry, you could get stung plenty. It wasn't a freaking out moment, but it still wasn't fun. But my wife, I'm worried to death about her. I'm like trying to get up there to the house, and we finally get up to the house, and she went inside. And I thought it was the weirdest thing. I looked behind me, and they're all pecking at the door, and I'm like, good gracious, these things are pretty relentless. Well, I went there, and she's still screaming. How bad are you stung? How bad are you? She had one sting. My face looked like a Christmas tree orange. It just was tagged. I had little stingers all in my face. I think Mr. Leonard, we counted around 40 in his face. And I think I didn't make it past 20. I think I was somewhere around there. But anyway, that kind of turned me off from beekeeping. Well, at least trusting my father-in-law anyway. But anyway, it was still fun. I learned something, that's for sure. He was right. I mean, I learned something. But what happened was the hot beetle got in there and ran them out, and they, after they were mad and hungry is what. They were not fat and happy. So anyway, I learned something. But Tim works her from the Boy Scout Club. He came over there and he said, man, you still have honeybees over there? I said, yeah, I don't even mess with them, but I still have some. He said, do you mind if I split them? I said, I don't mind. So he has a few. So what's left of our bees is still over right down the road from less than a mile. Mine ended up dying. I think it was something I sprayed. I think I killed them myself. So I was reading all the articles about, hey, don't spray 7 dust and all that stuff, and so I tried to stay away from it. When I switched chemicals, I should have read into a little bit more because I ended up killing what I had. But so anyway, that's my story about beekeeping as I know it. So Mr. Preston, he put together this presentation, and so bear with me. I would love to have more time, but he stopped and gave it to me yesterday evening?
At like 4:45.
So I haven't had a whole lot of time to go through it, so just please bear with me. But anyway, I'm not going to get into too scientific, but gymnosperms, amnosperms, angiosperms, the biggest thing there is most of your gymnosperms are your pine trees, your pines, all your conifers, your cedars, stuff like that. So that's your gymnosperms. Obviously not too great with for the bees. The angiosperms, that's the ones we're looking for. So that's going to be most of your fruit-bearing trees. I already talked about this year. I think this is the updated list. I did have a few seconds to update the list. Flowering dogwood, silky dogwood, the black locust, the eastern redbud, the persimmon, sugarberry, yellow poplar. Out of all those, the black locust, it's a little harder to find around here. It is around here, but it's probably the hardest one to find around here. It's one of my favorite trees. I love the thing. It has a lot of good uses as far as like even from firewood to post making. But that is more you find it more towards the mountains. Closer west you get, the more you find black locust.
I'm a redbud fan.
So do what?
And I like the redbud.
Yeah, so the redbud.
Or
Yep, it's a lot of people. Y'all probably seen the redbud has the heart-shaped leaf and the little, I would call them dark burgundy rust-colored seed pods that hang from them. And they're, most of the DOT's planted a lot of them. I don't know if y'all have any in your yard or not, but they've planted most of them. You can get the ornamental varieties that probably do a little bit better. So they're little, you're kind of, and this might be controversial, but you're kind of pushing a little east for them too. My opinion, I go to a lot of dead red buds when I get calls about, hey, can you come look at my red bud? And I contribute most of it to just being a little east than its native range. Even though you do see them out in the wild and they're doing pretty good, but they're not as hardy in this area. Persimmon, I'll start back at the top. The flower dogwood, that's everywhere. It's very common. I will say that the biggest mistake I would see with those is planting them in full sun. They don't like it. If you notice, and if you're driving around and you look at all the blossoms when you're driving by the woods, most of them are at the edge of the woods. You don't see a whole lot of them in the interior. They like that partial sun, partial shade, partial sun, and they do better there now. And they obviously they just blossom out a whole lot better than the ones in the yard. We have something called leaf anthracnose, not to be confused with dogwood anthracnose. There's no dogwood anthracnose around here that I know of. I need to update myself with where that is currently. I don't know if you know Mr. Tim or not. I don't know. I know it's on and they see it closer west, but around here I don't think they found that. But leaf anthracnose. Anthracnose it's found in a lot of hardwoods. You see it in sycamores and yellow poplar and a lot of different species. But leaf anthracnose, it's there because the tree is not meant to be there. It's already weak. It's coming in and it gets on it, and if it's a good strong tree, the tree will fight it. And a good way to do that is just to keep it from growing is to wreck your leaves and just good maintenance of your tree. But next, silky dogwood. I don't know if I see any of them around either. I think most of the time you see them is around your wetland mitigation. Folks are buying them up and they're planting them because they're living. And I think so. In that mix, they're probably quite a bit planted, but I don't ever see one. All my woods examination, I don't think I've ever seen one or noticed it. It might be there, I just hadn't put didn't relate to it. And then skip on down to the persimmon. The persimmon, it's everywhere. It's a great one. You'll see it. If it has the big orange, how many people's been into one that's not ripe yet? So, and it was a common forestry, joke. Everybody had to get the guy that didn't know what a persimmon was.
Just remember, it takes two.
So, yes. Yep, so thank you, Joey. So the persimmon, when you buy persimmons, just remember they're not focused on ornamentals at the nursery. They're focused on repopulating, putting the numbers back, and also for tree planters. So when you buy persimmons, there's gonna be males and females, and you don't know which one's which till later on. So that's the only downside of buying persimmons from our nursery. I will say that, going to an ornamental nursery, there's a guy, I don't remember his name, but out of Sampson County, that's done a lot of breeding work on persimmons, mostly for human consumption reasons. He looked for the ones that became ripe before the frost. So that was kind of neat. But it's another flowery one that is very important for bees. Sugarberry. Also, there's another one that everybody gets confused with is hackberry. So if you've ever been around, the easiest way to identify the sugarberry is it looks like the slick tree with warts all over it. That's the best way I can. And they get big. A lot of people planted them in their old homesteads and stuff, and they're in the yard, and they look like they have little warts all over it. But that's the sugarberry. The bark's very unique on that. Yellow poplar, y'all were just talking about it earlier. I mean, it's abundant, and I think we have a slide on that. I noticed that I was flipping through, I wanted to add more slides, but because of time, I couldn't. We're gonna go off of what he has, and then, we'll feed off that. But next one. Y'all know this stuff, but, I'm not gonna get too much into this, but this is more, you can use it in the market. I think the sourwood, we have quite a bit of sourwood around here. There's more, the numbers increase when you go to the mountains, but we do have a lot of sourwood around. I see it almost every mature track I go to. I mean, it's very abundant. And if you go into the woods, it's the tree that looks like this. Every time you see it, it's leaning over. So it's very rare I see a perfectly straight sourwood. Tupelo honey and acacia honey. Acacia honey, most people, that one is usually, I think, remarketed from black locust honey. I don't think it's so black locust pretty much, I think there's a slide on that, it's pretty much your false acacia. It's pretty instant scientific name, but go to the next slide, Joey. So the sourwood, a little bit about it, there's a few pictures in here, there's not many. And like I said, I wish I could add more, but, so you use it for your sourwood honey. I know my father-in-law used to always tell me that he would, if you ever found sourwood and tie close together, he said he'd always try to stick a hive over there, because he'd always, looking for the blue honey. And so, and I think he always kept it for the family. I don't think he ever sold it or anything, but, he always would, get some blue honey. And he had pictures that he showed me. I wish I could have had them, but y'all probably know more about that than I do.
It was sourwood and what?
Tie.
Tie.
Tie kind of looks like, if you see the woods, it kind of looks like wax myrtle. But it's, you don't have one of those in Arboretum, do you, Mr. Tim?
Wax myrtle.
Yeah, wax myrtle, okay. That's it. It's more common than people realize, but it's usually on like a wetter soil. It's pretty wet, nasty ground, places that would never be farmed. It's, the back 40. So it's, but it's.
And that's where the blue honey comes from.
That's what he explained to me, was that
Sourwood and tie.
Mm-hmm. And I know there's another one out there, I can't remember the two species that I've read about as well. They call it the purple honey, but I'm not really sure about that one. I know I'm just more familiar with what my father-in-law told me.
Did you eat any of it?
I have not. So every time I ask him, he's like, I don't have any, So I'm like, it must taste sweeter or something. I was like, why does it keep on getting going? So, but anyway, I've never tried it. So. The sourwood, native statewide, usually found in the dry upland areas, acidic soils, so that's, that's us. The long racing, but usually the flowers, they call them, the lady fingers, because they kind of point up, as they're hanging. They're pretty showy. If you notice this and ever adjust your eye to it, you don't forget it. It's and also the leaf. I know he's got it in here too. When you crumble it up and snuff of it, it smells like like Granny Smith apples. It's kind of, and me, when I was taking dendrology in forestry school, I actually went here. I didn't talk about that part of our background, but I took the 2-year program here in forestry. And I had to taste everything. I'm a big boy, I love to eat, and it tastes like Granny Smith to me, so I would smell it and taste it, and that's how I could remember it. Next one, Joey. Black gum Tupelo, so we have a few different species. The black gum, the easiest way, I know how I identify it. I have lost a lot of my characteristics that I used to, that is probably better for teaching. But I've almost recognized stuff like trees like I do people, like it's like a memory recognition, like when I see your face, it's like, oh, I remember you, like, and that's bad for teaching, because it's hard, I can't remember all the little characteristics of, the bark and all that. So I walk up to them like, oh, and it's just off the top of my head. And bad habit for teaching, but it works for me. But the black gum, if you look at a sweet gum, and you look at this bark, most people know what a sweet gum is. Have like a star-shaped leaf with you good old gum balls. Well, if you look at that bark looks a whole lot like it, but the leaf is going to have that round leaf on it, and you most of the time in later on in the summer, you'll have the fruit on it, which is like a little blackberry, a little blackish bluish berry.
Very good.
So, yeah, not something you wanna eat, Joey.
Do the
But-
bees like the black gum?
So they do, the flowers, they go out. So I
Cause they
have,
don't have a bee on it in the book.
so, and I talked to Bobby about it. I didn't realize that. Yeah, I talked to him, and it might be just a printer error, when they make these things, there's no telling what gets pushed out. But thank you, I will mention that to him. But it does have a flower, I have one in my front yard, and the bees love it. They're all, I mean, between that and the hollies, they love them. One of the species not on the list is hollies. American holly is very vital to, to pollination, and the reason why is it takes 2 years to germinate that seed, and it's kind of not in the right practices for our nursery to keep seed around 2 years in stratification just for it to germinate. So it just don't work out with their practices. So it's usually easier to get those from an ornamental nursery, the American holly. Swamp black gum, it looks a whole lot like the black gum, but it has more of a wide base to it. Has a real buttress base, it's pretty big. And that's and you see it, if you're seeing swamp black gum, more than likely your feet you're gonna have some mud on them. So it's, you're starting to get a little wetter. It's just like your water tupelo, you're in the water. Matter of fact, we collect those seeds from bud, so that lets you know where they're located. Out in the rivers, it's kind of a fun trip to do. All right, next slide, Joey. We already talked about the black locust, a little bit. Used to produce acacia honey. They call it, it's the false acacia, but acacia is more of, like Africa, and I can't remember where else where the acacia wood is, but anyway, that's where the acacia trees are. The black locusts, most of them are towards our mountains, so you do see a few around here. And I have never, it said the actual flowers are edible. I've never ate a black locust flower. That's
Because
it.
you can't get too close with the thorns.
I know, yeah,
That's the negative, the thorns.
I know I've ate the inside of pods out of honey locusts. Cause when that seed came in, I would tell you, it just tastes like honey. Resembled it anyway. All right, next slide, Joey. The early pollinators, and there's plenty of Chickasaw plum, American plum, out and about. You'll see it, it flowers early. And if you ever notice towards more of your drier sites, you look up under the trees, up under the pine trees or up under the hardwoods, you'll see a bunch of white flowers about, yay tall. And sometimes they're they get, I'll be almost, 10 foot tall or so. And you see a bunch of them and nothing else is blooming, and that's probably a plum. And they grow thick, like, like dog hair. When they drop their seed or whatever, there's a bunch of them. So that's the plums. Blueberry, all the high bush, low bush, all that, they're early bloomers. Depends on what varieties you have. I know we have low bush and high bush on our farm. Our low bush, it blooms, the variety that we have, which I do not know, but it blooms really early. And matter of fact, blueberries they come off in early June. So this to July, like our other ones, they come off pretty earlier. So it's available food source for the bees early on. So just think about that. And that's something easy to get your hands on, and then, that's a second benefit for y'all, as they mature. All right, next one, Joy.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes, sir, Ms. Carey.
On them two blueberries, is one of them larger or smaller or what?
So on my high bush, I have varieties of small and large.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so the berries that don't always line up with, like your rabbit eye, it don't always line up. So I've seen both on both.
Okay.
So other trees and shrubs, you have your crab apples. There's another one around here. There's a regular crab apple. Well, there's a lot of different species of crab apples, but the southern crab apple, I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it almost looks like groups of cherry, like little baby small cherries, hanging. But the southern crabapple produces a lot of fruit, has a bunch of flowers on it. It's pretty neat, and they certain years they sell southern crab apples at the nursery, and certain years they sell regular crab apple. And they will just group all the crab apples into one, they mix them all together. If somebody goes out and collects it, so whatever variety, it's not really always I won't say a wild source, sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't, and it's all mixed in with different ornamentals and ones that are good for fruit. But crab apples, that's a good one to have. The hawthorns, we see that in the wild quite a bit. I don't know where you could actually buy those at. There might be a nursery out there somewhere you have to do a Google search for. We already talked about the plums, the cherries. There's black cherry, there's quite a bit of those around naturally. And we were selling those. I don't know if they're in the book. I don't know if I mentioned those or not.
Which one?
The black cherry.
Where would it be in here?
It would be in the yellow, like the first few pages, like page 5. I don't see it up here, but we usually grow black cherry. That's interesting. But black cherry is a very common species around here. It's kind of a scrub in this part of the world. When you go back towards the mountains, they use it for timber and furniture and such. But around here, it's kind of just, they use it for pulpwood as far as the timber market, but it's very good for producing flowers. Then you have your service berries, your chokeberries. I don't know where, they might have some ornamental varieties of these out there. But in the service berries, I see a few wild ones around or whatever, but my identification, I don't pick up on them really easy. So it has to catch my attention. So a little bit more, for me, it's a little bit harder to identify those, just because of the rarity. But is that the last slide I was doing? So kind of went through that quick. I wish I had more identification ones, but I didn't have a chance to put together a slide, and Preston got sent away. So I apologize for that, but we're trying to make do with the time we have. But anyway, any questions?
Those plums you were talking about, are they the wild plums? The edible?
So yes, the Chickasaw and the American plum, both of them are edible. Yes, sir. Matter of fact, Miss Norma Gore, she had a bunch of them over there in Grantham, and I was gonna dig some up, but her consultant ended up spraying them before I could get to them. But she had a lot of them that were coming up under the pine trees, and just like I said, they were dog hair thick. I was gonna plant some around the house just to have. But when they produce, I had one planted at a nursery, and here's just full of flowers, full of fruit. It's pretty nice.
If you put an acre, how many trees would you need for an acre? I mean,
So it varies. So if you're going for, it depends on what purpose, your objective. If you're going for timber, you're gonna be like a 10 by 10. You want tight spacing because you want the branches to be less, Whereas for fruit bearing trees, you're going to stretch it out, and it all depends on the size of the tree as well. So I think, like in my yard, all my fruit trees I have them probably about 30 foot apart from each other. Some of them I have 20 foot apart. It all depends on which, some of my larger pears at the house, which can't get in the nursery, like the ornamental pears and such. I have some of them, at least 30 foot apart because they just get a lot larger. Then I have some other varieties of pears that I have 15 foot apart. Just cause I don't know, maybe they might be as tall as the ceiling at the highest point, and that's because I let them go and had to reprune them, but they just don't get very tall. So, and then blueberries, you can stack them on top of each other and have them, just a few feet apart. So it all depends on what you're going for. If you're going for flower production, the key is to have sunlight. That's the thing. You want sunlight for flower production, and the flowers equals, pollen. So that's the take home from anything you plant. It's just let it get sunlight, except for dogwoods.
And how much space you have available.
Yeah, so, and, you know, yeah, sometimes you just don't have a lot and you're trying to work with what you have, so. I don't know if that's what y'all were looking for, but that's what I had.
That's very good.